Cleveland, Ohio, 1935. He put Al Capone behind bars. He became a national hero. And then he faced a killer he could never stop. If stories like this matter to you, liking the video, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments helps the channel more than you might think. Let's begin. America is still struggling to survive the Great Depression. What began as a financial collapse has turned into a social crisis. Jobs have disappeared, savings are gone, and entire communities are left with nothing to fall back on. Cleveland, once a proud industrial city, feels the impact deeply. The factories that once powered the local economy now operate at a fraction of their capacity, or not at all. Smoke still rises from some chimneys, but the streets tell a different story, one of unemployment, hunger, and quiet despair. Thousands of men wander the city each day looking for work that no longer exists. Some sleep in doorways, others drift toward the edges of the city, where they are less likely to be noticed. That edge has a name: Kingsbury Run. Running along the railroad tracks that cut through Cleveland, Kingsbury Run is not listed on official city maps. It is a vast stretch of land filled with makeshift shelters built from scrap wood, cardboard, and corrugated metal. There is no infrastructure, no sanitation, and no real law enforcement presence. People live here because they have no alternatives. Families who lost their homes, veterans who returned to nothing, men who rode freight trains from city to city searching for work, only to end up stranded. Kingsbury Run becomes a place of last resort, and a place the rest of the city prefers to ignore. During the day, life in Kingsbury Run is visible but tolerated. Trains thunder past, factories loom nearby, and people move about trying to survive. But when night falls, the area transforms. The lights fade, the noise dies down, and Kingsbury Run becomes invisible. It is a place where screams can go unheard, where people can vanish without records, where suffering blends into the darkness. And in a city overwhelmed by poverty and fear, few are watching closely enough to notice when something truly dangerous begins to take shape. While Cleveland struggles to hold itself together, a man arrives whose reputation precedes him: Eliot Ness. By 1935, Ness is one of the most recognizable lawmen in America. He rose to national fame in Chicago as the leader of the Untouchables, a group of federal agents known for their refusal to accept bribes during Prohibition. His work played a major role in bringing down Al Capone, the most powerful gangster in the country. To the public, Ness represents something rare in that era: integrity. When he is appointed Cleveland's Director of Public Safety, the announcement makes headlines. The role places him in charge of both the police and fire departments, a clear signal that the city wants reform, discipline, and accountability. Ness arrives with confidence and determination. He believes corruption can be rooted out, systems can be rebuilt, and order can be restored. For a city desperate for stability, his presence feels like a turning point. Newspapers praise the decision. Citizens talk about change. Now, if Eliot Ness cleaned up Chicago, surely he can clean up Cleveland. But the problems waiting for him here are different. This is not a city dominated by organized crime syndicates fighting over profits. Cleveland's greatest enemy is neglect. Entire neighborhoods exist beyond effective control. People fall through the cracks, and no one keeps count. As Ness begins restructuring departments and addressing corruption, he remains unaware of what is already happening in the shadows. Something is moving quietly through the forgotten parts of the city, not motivated by money or power, but by something far more unsettling. Ness is prepared to fight criminals. He is prepared to confront corruption. What he is not prepared for is a threat with no clear motive, no demands, and no interest in being caught. And as Cleveland places its hopes in a hero, a nightmare is already taking form just beyond the city's attention. One that will challenge everything Elliot Ness believes about justice, control, and the limits of law enforcement. The first discovery doesn't immediately make headlines. In a city overwhelmed by poverty and crime, a body found near Kingsbury Run is not unusual. Cleveland police have seen violence before. At first, this case seems no different. But as investigators take a closer look, something feels wrong. The victim has been decapitated. The head is missing. At the time, police assume it will turn up eventually. It doesn't. Then another body is found, and then another. Slowly, a pattern begins to form. The victims are discovered in or near Kingsbury Run, along the railroad tracks, beneath bridges, close to abandoned factories. Places where few people go and even fewer ask questions. What alarms investigators is not just the number of deaths, but the condition of the bodies. The cuts are precise, deliberate, careful. Medical examiners note that the dismemberment shows a level of control not usually seen in crimes of desperation. Whoever is responsible appears to understand the human body. Some believe the killer has medical knowledge. Others suggest experience as a butcher or meat cutter. But there is one detail that disturbs everyone involved. Many of the bodies have been washed, cleaned, drained completely of blood before being left behind. This is not random violence. This is preparation. By the time the press becomes aware of the pattern, fear begins to spread through Cleveland. Newspapers coin a name that will follow the case forever: the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Officially, police acknowledge 12 victims. Privately, many officers believe the true number is far higher. Some victims are identified. Others are never named. In a city full of transients, migrant workers, and homeless men, disappearances are easy to overlook. People vanish without families to ask questions, without records to follow. And whoever is responsible knows this. The killer does not rush. He does not panic. He does not make mistakes. Each crime feels intentional, as if part of a process rather than an impulse. The bodies are not hidden. They are placed where they will eventually be found, but never quickly enough to prevent the next one. As weeks turn into months, the realization sets in. This is not a single act of violence. It is a series. And the person behind it is still out there. As the investigation drags on, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The killer is not afraid. He does not attempt to hide what he's doing. He does not rush to escape. And he does not seem concerned about being caught. The bodies continue to appear in locations that feel deliberate. Not buried, not concealed. Left in places where discovery is inevitable, sooner or later. To investigators, it feels less like disposal and more like communication. Each new discovery sends a message that Cleveland cannot ignore. Newspapers publish daily updates. Rumors spread through the city. Fear settles in, not just around Kingsbury Run, but far beyond it. And at the center of that fear is Elliot Ness. For Ness, this case is unlike anything he has faced before. Organized crime follows rules. Corruption leaves paper trails. Even the most dangerous gangsters can be pressured, bribed, or betrayed. This killer offers none of that. There are no demands, no calls, no letters signed with a name. Only bodies. At one point, investigators make a discovery that changes everything. The remains of 2 victims are placed in a location clearly visible, from the window of Elliot Ness's office. There is no ambiguity, no coincidence. The message is unmistakable. I know where you are, and I'm not afraid of you. From that moment on, the case stops being just another investigation. It becomes personal. Ness throws himself into the search. Leads are followed aggressively. Suspects are questioned. Entire areas are combed repeatedly. But nothing sticks. No witnesses come forward. No reliable descriptions emerge. No clear suspect can be tied to the crimes. Meanwhile, the press begins to turn. Headlines that once praised Elliot Ness now question him. Reporters ask how the man who brought down Al Capone can fail to stop a killer operating openly inside his own city. Public confidence erodes. Every new article adds pressure. Every unanswered question cuts deeper. Ness, once calm and methodical, begins to show signs of strain. This is no longer just about stopping a murderer. It is about pride, reputation, control. And the more Ness pushes, the more the killer seems to slip through his fingers. Some investigators later believe that this is exactly what the butcher wanted. Not just to kill, but to be seen. By 1937, the case has consumed Cleveland. Every new discovery becomes front-page news. Every unanswered question fuels speculation. And with each passing month, the pressure on Elliot Ness intensifies. The public no longer sees a hero. They see a man who is losing. Newspapers begin to frame the story differently. Articles question Ness's competence. Editorials ask how the man who defeated America's most notorious gangster can fail to stop a killer operating in plain sight. Behind closed doors, the strain begins to show. Ness works longer hours. He reopens old leads. He interrogates suspects repeatedly, hoping that something, anything, will crack. But the case refuses to move forward. There is no clear pattern among the victims, no consistent motive, no trail that leads anywhere solid. Instead, the investigation feels like it is circling the same dead ends over and over again. For Ness, this is more than a professional failure. It becomes personal. He believes the killer is mocking him, challenging his authority, exploiting the parts of the city no one truly controls. As months turn into years, Ness grows increasingly convinced that the truth is being protected, that someone, somewhere, knows more than they are saying. Privately, he begins to suspect that the killer may not be a drifter or a vagrant, but someone with influence, someone educated, someone who understands how to avoid attention, possibly even someone respected. But suspicion is not evidence, and without proof, the case continues to stall. Inside City Hall, patience runs out. Cleveland's leaders want results. The public wants answers. And Elliot Ness, once celebrated for his restraint and discipline, begins to consider actions he would have rejected earlier in his career. The question is no longer how to catch the killer. The question becomes how to make the killings stop. By 1938, Elliot Ness is running out of options. The investigation has stalled. The killings have not been solved, and the pressures surrounding the case has become unbearable. Public confidence is gone. Political support is fading. Every move Ness makes is scrutinized. Kingsbury Run remains at the center of it all. To Ness, the shantytown represents more than poverty. It represents chaos, a place beyond control, beyond records, beyond accountability, a place where a killer can hide in plain sight. And so, Ness makes a decision. In one of the most controversial actions of his career, he orders a massive police raid on Kingsbury Run. Officers move in during the night. Hundreds of residents are forced to leave their shelters with little warning. Makeshift homes built from years of desperation are torn apart. What cannot be cleared is set on fire. The shantytown burns. Flames tear through cardboard walls and scrap metal roofs. Smoke rises over the city as Kingsbury Run is reduced to ash. By morning, the settlement that once housed thousands is gone. The reaction is immediate. Many in Cleveland are horrified. Ness is accused of cruelty and abuse of power. Critics argue that he has punished the poorest citizens for crimes they did not commit. Editorials condemn the raid as desperate and inhumane. For Eliot Ness, the decision is calculated. If the killer is hiding among the forgotten, then the hiding place must be destroyed. And in a deeply unsettling twist, something happens next. The murders stop. No new bodies are discovered. No new victims appear. The pattern that terrorized Cleveland for years suddenly ends. There is no arrest, no confession, no explanation, just silence. After the fire at Kingsbury Run, Cleveland waits. Days pass, then weeks, then months. No new bodies are found. The pattern that had haunted the city for years simply stops. There is no announcement from police, no press conference declaring success, no suspect led away in handcuffs. The killings end without explanation, leaving behind a silence that feels almost heavier than the crimes themselves. For some, the conclusion seems obvious. Perhaps the killer died in the fire. Perhaps he was injured, trapped, or unable to escape as the shantytown burned. Others believe something else entirely, that the fire destroyed not the killer, but his cover. That he slipped away unnoticed, climbed aboard a freight train, and disappeared into another city where no one knew his name or his past. There are also darker theories. Some investigators quietly suggest that the killer may have been someone protected by the system, a respected figure, a doctor, a professional with enough influence to avoid suspicion and enough knowledge to avoid mistakes. Eliot Ness himself reportedly leaned toward this possibility. Privately, he believed the truth might never surface, not because it couldn't be found, but because exposing it would cause more damage than silence. Officially, the case remains unsolved. No arrests are made, no charges are filed, no identities are confirmed. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run fades into history as a name without a face, a presence defined only by what was left behind. And for Cleveland, the terror ends not with justice, but with unanswered questions. Eliot Ness never solved the case. Years after the killings stopped, there were no breakthroughs, no late confessions, no hidden files brought to light. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run remained exactly what he had always been, a ghost. For Ness, the failure followed him. The man once celebrated as a national hero slowly faded from public favor. His career unraveled. Personal struggles took their toll. The confidence that once defined him was replaced by regret and unanswered questions. He had brought down Al Capone. He had taken on organized crime and won. But he could not defeat a killer with no face, no motive, and no desire to be known. Eliot Ness died years later, nearly forgotten, far from the fame that once surrounded his name. Those who knew him said the Cleveland case never left him. It haunted him, not because of what he did, but because of what he couldn't do. The killer was never caught. The truth was never confirmed. And the silence that followed proved more unsettling than any arrest ever could. Some files are closed with justice. Others remain open. Not because they lack answers, but because the answers were never meant to be found. This was one of them.